What's up, everybody, and welcome back to some UFC DFS picks, UFC 265 MMA DFS for FanDuel and DraftKings. Best bets, tips, line of advice, you name it, we are here for you. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. I'm joined today, like I am always, by Jake the Snake, owner of MMA DFS.com, writer of the Daily Plug at OccupyFantasy.com. Jake, what's up, man?
What's up, man? Good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually pre-recording this video for a change, no live stream this week. We're going to be here for about 10 minutes with our quick hitting thoughts. So if you have any questions for us, you can always comment on this video below, or the best way probably is just to hop in our Discord channel. Click the join button below this video to get access. OccupyFantasy.com/Discord for more info on that. So Jake, let's jump right into it. 13 fights on this card, pay-per-view event, massive contest on DraftKings this week, a little bit bigger contest on FanDuel. Derek Lewis, Cyril Gane is the main event, so let's start there. Now, despite the pricing advantages that we normally get from a main event, and we do get that this week over on DraftKings, this is a lower volume heavyweight bout. So talk to me about how this fight fits into low risk and high risk contests on both FanDuel and DraftKings.
Yes, I mean, we were talking about it earlier, and I think you kind of put it nicely. We're treating this more like a 4-round fight. So it's not a 5-rounder, it's not a 3-rounder, it's kind of in between. Lewis, he's just like classic low volume heavyweight. He only lands 2.59 significant strikes per minute. He only absorbs 2.16. It's going to be really hard for this to be a volume driven decision. So for it to really score well, you kind of need a first round finish. If we get, a finish like what we've normally seen, if we look at Lewis's last 9 5-round fights, they've all ended in rounds 2, 3, or 4. And if we get one of those lower volume, early round 2, mid round 3, mid round 4 knockouts, I mean, it might only score 85, 90 points. We can look at Lewis's last early second round KO. It only scored 83 DraftKings points. So, I mean, even when he was priced at 6,800 on DraftKings, he still didn't make the optimal lineup for tournaments. So it's also hard to stack for low risk because, Lewis might only score 6 points. I mean, literally, like you look at some of his scores and losses, 2 or 3, 20 points. So if Gane only scores 85, 90 and Lewis only scores 5, that's really not a great fight to stack for low risk. So overall, you can play Gane in low risk, but we're not really looking to stack in low risk on DraftKings. And in high risk, we're just treating it more closer to a normal fight. You still want to have like a little bit of exposure to Lewis since he's so cheap and he could score well. It's just not very likely, but he's a little bit of a better play on FanDuel, I think. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, first of all, Lewis's last fight was a fantastic outcome for me. That was the slate. I won the 100K. I needed blades not to go off, so that was amazing for me. But I think the way I would describe it is Gane is probably the safest bet for 80 points on the slate. But that doesn't mean a ton for the super large field tournaments. But I think if you're playing small field contests, you're playing low risk, then I think he's probably the best play in that regard because he is the biggest favorite on the card. He does get 5 rounds of volume, even if it's not a lot of volume. But I think he's probably the safest for 80 points. But, this year with the new DraftKings scoring change, we haven't seen a ton of fights, a ton of main events left out of the optimal lineup. But this could be one of those just because of Lewis's style. So I think I would probably be under the fight a little bit in high risk contests, really large field. Smaller contests, 100 player, 500 player type, I'll probably have a good amount of Gane, and I think that's how I'll approach it. Now,
I think that makes a lot of sense.
okay, cool. And then, on pay-per-view cards, we normally don't get too many newcomers. We do have one newcomer this week, and we know that we're always looking for fighters who are making their UFC debuts because we have a wide range of outcomes. Lots of different things can happen, and that's what we love to see in DFS to try to predict the unpredictable. We have just one this week. It's Melissa Gatso. I'm going to bring up the Occupy model really quickly here on screen so you can see it. The Occupy model ranks every fighter, FanDuel, and DraftKings with projected ownership. And Gatso, Jake, she's been trying to fight for the last, I don't know how long. Every single fight she's tried to make has been canceled. And the last time she fought, basically someone was recording her fight with a flip phone. So whatever you can find on Gatto, talk to me about her and this fight with Victoria Leonardo, because Leonardo's line movement does make this an interesting fight from an ownership perspective. But I'm hearing your take on Gatto, her strengths and weaknesses, what we can expect for this fight.
Yeah, so I mean, Gatto to me, again, I was looking at the same cell phone footage you were. I mean, I don't know what format records Square, but that's how we were watching Gatto on some low quality, crazy feed. Pure submission specialist. So she only has 8 pro fights. 4 of them ended in round 1 submission wins. 4 of them went the distance, where she had 2 wins and a pair of draws. So interestingly, her last win came against Carol Rosa, really good in the UFC now. It was in like a boxing ring. Uh, so
Also shot with a cell phone, by the way.
yeah, shot with a cell phone from like the lower perspective outside the ring. I mean, really just kind of ridiculous. So that was back in 2018, September 2018. So, 35 months since she last fought. And really didn't look like a very good striker. No takedown defense, just like totally willing to go down on the ground, just purely looking for submissions. And that's really all she is. And the line has moved massively against her. She opened the week as a negative 145 favorite, and now it's down to plus 100. So, I mean, that's a huge move.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's kind of interesting because I liked Leonardo coming into the week after watching Gatto's tape and feeling that Leonardo as a specialist on the ground could put up a huge amount of takedowns, control potentially, and then we see the line move in her favor, and now we have Leonardo who is a favorite at just $7,400 on DraftKings. I mean, and the fact that FanDuel releases their prices later in the week and Leonardo is priced higher than Gatto should tell you all you need to know. For me, I think it's a fight you want to target. Because even with Leonardo's increased ownership, we have her at 24% on DraftKings, Gatto just 14%. That's only 38% combined ownership for a fight, Jake, that could go a lot of different directions. Because Gatto, like you said, she could easily get a round 1 submission. We don't know much about her besides what she likes to do.
Right. I mean, the implied odds, I mean, she's a 35% chance to get a finish at 14% ownership. I mean, that's pretty solid. So I think that she makes for an interesting tournament play, and you're just hoping for that round 1 submission. And I think if it gets past that, Leonardo could really score well on DraftKings, like you said, with control time. She's a grappler, she had the toughest possible UFC debut, and this looks like a way easier fight. So I think it's a really interesting spot, and you can kind of approach it from like a game theory perspective or just a value perspective on Leonardo. So I definitely think it's a fight you want to target for sure.
And speaking of those, I know you wrote up 2 more fights in our daily plug that you want to target this week. You like fighters on both sides. Which 2 are they? And if you had to be heavy on one side or the other, let me know which one that would be.
Yeah, so the 2 that I wrote up in the plug, they're Cape and Osborne. Cap, whatever we're going with that. Cop.
You got it on the 3rd try.
So Cop and Osborne, Cop's been super disappointing. He's been to 2 decisions so far in the UFC. He's lost them both. The last one was pretty close. He thought he won both of them. The first one he clearly lost. But prior to joining the UFC, he had 15 wins and 14 had come early. And now he's going against Ode Osborne, who's coming off 7 straight fights to end in the first round. He won 5 of those, got submitted in the other 2. Osborne is dropping down. He last fought at 145 pounds. He typically fights at 135. This fight is down at 125 pounds, where he's never fought before. So that definitely makes it a high variance fight where he could look great or he could look terrible. If he looks great, then Osborne could get another round 1 KO or submission. If he looks terrible, then this would be a great spot to get Cop at low ownership, desperate for a win. He's looked so bad. But if you look back prior to joining the UFC, I mean, he was really aggressive. So I don't know what changed when he joined the UFC, other than they don't let him wear shoes anymore. He used to wear those like wrestling shoes in Ryzen. I don't know what's going on with him, man, but I feel like this is his last chance to really show that he belongs. And there was a lot of hype coming on him coming into the UFC, and he has just completely let everyone down. So I think he's going to be really low owned. Osborne's going to be really highly owned. And I think Cop has some sneaky upside here, and Osborne has obvious upside. So that's one that I think is pretty easy to target, and I think you want to have good exposure to both sides. And then kind of a more under the radar one is going to be Draco Rodriguez and Vince Morales. Another high variance fight. We don't know much about Draco. He got knocked out in the first round in his debut. Absolutely terrible. Just so bad. And then Vince Morales, similarly, he's 1-3 in the UFC. He's coming off a 15-month layoff after the Chris Gutierrez leg strike TKO last May. And then after that, he also broke Morales' orbital. And then when Morales returned from the orbital injury, tore his Achilles. And then he returned in February from that, switched teams to Syndicate MMA. He's now in Vegas. But I feel like he has underrated hands. Like, he's a decent striker. He doesn't really offer any grappling, but I feel like he could potentially knock Rodriguez out. And another side of things, Draco is an okay grappler, at least from like what we've seen. Super limited tape on Draco, which makes it more high variance because we just don't know what to expect from him. He only has, let's say, 9 pro fights. He's 7-2. Only one of those has gone the distance. But he looks super vulnerable to being knocked out in his last fight. And Morales, like, no one's going to be on him right now. We have his ownership projection at 14%, and he's really cheap on FanDuel at only $13. The line's basically a pick 'em. It's -105 for Morales, -115 for Draco. So I really like Morales, especially on FanDuel, where you can't takedowns defended, super good value play. But I think both those fights end early. I kind of like Morales to knock out Rodriguez, and I guess in the other one, I'm going to say I like Cop to get a finish over Osborne, but I'm not sure if I really do. I mean, that's such a gross play, but I think you almost have to do that in tournaments. I mean, what are you doing there?
Yeah, I mean we have to at least get 1 to 2 gross plays per lineup for playing the big tournaments on either site. And I agree with you on the Cop side. I mean, he's desperate for a win, and we've seen historically when fighters are 0-2, or we know they're fighting for their UFC lives, that they push a little more in that fight. And I mean, both of his fights, the commentators, everyone's saying he has to be more aggressive. So at this point, he has to know he has to be more aggressive. And with Osborne dropping down and Cop having half the ownership despite being a -200 favorite, easy for me to play the Cop side in that fight heavily. And then for Draco and Vince Morales, like, both guys are low owned. So let's just play both of them, not in the same lineup, obviously. And again, we're looking for spots where we don't know a ton about each fighter. That's what leads to these crazy end of range outcomes in MMA DFS. So I like your breakdown on both of those, Jake. Now, speaking of tournaments, we are looking for low owned fighters. We've talked about a few already. Do you have any to add to the mix? That's, if you're watching this video, Jake, a low owned fighter that you feel the best about for tournaments?
Yeah, so Miles Johns was supposed to fight Anderson Dos Santos 3 weeks ago, and the fight got canceled on the day of the event due to COVID protocol. So now it's on this slate. I was big on Johns then. I'm still big on Johns now. His price did go up interestingly from on DraftKings. It went from 8,400 to 8,900. So I think he should be even lower owned now at that price. He hasn't really scored well in the past, but I think this is a good spot for a round 2. Round 3 KO. I think he's an even better play on FanDuel. Should get some takedowns defended. I really like Miles Johns here.
Cool. And again, a lot of these fights we've talked about, all the fighters are less than 20% owned, which shows you that there's a lot of concentrated ownership on some of these bigger favorites and bigger knockout favorites. So just keep that in mind. Lots of places to get leverage. I noticed that, Jake, when I was building some lineups today, that I set my normal threshold. I have to get a certain amount of players under 20%. It's like, wow, I have a lot at my disposal this week. And I think if I had to pick one, we've already talked about a couple so far: Gatso, Cop, Morales, the last fight. Since you went Miles Johns, the favorite, I'll go with Vince Morales, who is an underdog, low owned, is my low owned tournament play of the week. But I do like those other two as well. Easy slate to get leverage. We just gotta have our fingers crossed that the 40% owned fighters don't get immediate round 1 KOs. So. All right, that'll do it for the show. We do have to close out with our stream parlay of the week. We're still trying to get back into the green on that side of things. So, Jake, you give me a bet. I'll add a bet to it. That'll be our stream parlay of the week. Let's see if we can hit it.
All right, this is definitely the week. I'm going to go with Johnny Munoz round 1 win at plus 340.
So Johnny Munoz, who is, by the way, the cover boy of our daily plug. We didn't talk about him, but we really like his expectations this week. And I'm going to go Michael Chiesa decision prop. It's like plus 220, I think. So that'll be our parlay of the week. Jake, do you know what that pays out?
That should be about plus 13 to 1. So a little over plus 1,300.
We'll take it. We've got to hit about 5 more of those, and we'll be back in the green this year. So why not start UFC 265. So that'll do it for this video. Appreciate everyone listening. If you like what you saw, make sure you click subscribe. Get notified whenever we go live or upload any new videos. NFL's here, so tons of new videos around the corner. We're still doing UFC breakdowns every single week. Give us a thumbs up if you like this and want to see more UFC content. And again, if you have questions, comment on the video below or hop in our Discord channel. Click the join button below this video, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. For more information, go to MMADFS.com, where you can read Jake's The Sheet, where he breaks down every single fight on the card, fighters' histories, DFS, and betting implications. Jake also writes the Daily Plug at OccupyFantasy.com. Top low-risk and high-risk plays, the best bets, and specific lineup strategies for FanDuel and DraftKings. And we talked about the Occupy model already. Ranks every fighter on the slate. You can use that for our lineup builder to build up to 150 lineups for either site. Jake, I think I covered everything. Do we have anything else we want to add?
I think you got it all, man. But yeah, that is kind of wild. We made it through the whole time without talking about Johnny Munoz, who's probably the best tournament play on the slate, in my opinion. But Johnny,
two sentences why. Give me 2 sentences why Munoz is your favorite play of the week.
So I think Jamie Simmons is not a UFC talent, and I think Johnny Munoz has a lot to prove here, and he underperformed in his first UFC fight.
Could not agree more. One of my favorite plays as well. So for Jake, you can follow him on Twitter at DFS_MMA. You can follow me at Brian Jester FF. Follow us at Occupy Fantasy. Appreciate everyone listening. Good luck on Saturday, and we'll talk to you soon.